Have you ever felt like you've done everything right, made plans, worked hard, treated others kindly, yet life still doesn't seem to go your way? You might have asked yourself, how much more do I have to try? If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many people quietly carry a sense of disappointment simply because life didn't unfold the way they hoped. Or maybe you woke up to a bright, peaceful morning, thinking today would be calm and easy. But then a phone call, a message, or some unexpected event suddenly turned everything upside down. You try to stay calm, to keep it together, to control what's happening, but the harder you try, the more exhausted you feel. And maybe in those moments, it hasn't yet occurred to you. Sometimes it's the very need to control everything that keeps us from finding peace. Then there are times when you pause and look back at your life, all the things you've been through, all that you've lost, and everything you've held on to for so long. You realize you're still gripping something that no longer fits who you are, but you don't know how to let it go. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's an expectation. Maybe it's just an old version of yourself you're trying to preserve, and you think letting go means giving up, but maybe that's where real strength begins. In today's video, we'll explore the wisdom of the Buddha on acceptance seno as surrender, but as a doorway to real peace. Together, we'll reflect on the illusion of control, draw insight from the flowing river, and discover the quiet freedom that comes when we finally release the heavy stone we've been holding. This isn't about philosophy, it's about a way of living more gently in a world that's always shifting. Let's begin this journey together, from understanding to letting go, to finally coming home to this present moment. 1. Impermanence is a truth we can't escape. There's something strange about how we live. We're afraid of losing things, yet we forget that nothing can truly be held forever. The weather changes every day. Today is sunny. Tomorrow might bring a storm. A healthy body today might feel tired tomorrow. Emotions rise and fall like the tides joyful in the morning, and by evening, a quiet sadness. Even people we once felt so close to may one day walk a different path. If we look closely, life is a constant stream that never stays still. Yet we live as though things will always stay the same, as if youth won't pass, as if the ones we love will never change, as if what we have today will always be there tomorrow. And that's where suffering begins, when the heart clings to what was never meant to last. There's a beautiful story in the Buddhist scriptures. A mother who lost her child came to the Buddha, carrying the child's lifeless body in her arms, heartbroken and in disbelief. She begged the Buddha to bring her child back to life. The Buddha looked at her with deep compassion and said, "All right, but first, bring me a handful of mustard seeds from any home in this village where no one has ever died." She went from house to house, down every street, but everywhere she heard the same reply: "We've lost a father, a mother, a child, a spouse." And when she returned, her tears had dried, but her heart had awakened. She saw clearly, no one escapes impermanence. That truth, though it sounds, Sadi's actually the beginning of wisdom. When we see that all things change, we begin to live differently. We stop postponing love. We stop wasting time on things that don't matter. A meal with family, a sincere conversation, a quiet sunset with ourselves, these moments become deeply precious. Someone who understands impermanence doesn't live in sorrow. On the contrary, they live with more appreciation. Like knowing a flower only blooms for a few days, we look at it more closely, breathe in its fragrance a little longer, and remember its beauty more deeply. But if we assume the flower will always be there, we overlook its wonder. A Zen teacher once said, "We don't suffer because things change. We suffer because we don't accept that they do." The more deeply we reflect on that, the more we see it's true. It's not reality that exhausts us, it's our resistance to it. In modern life, people are caught up in achievement, routine, and deadlines. Some go 30 years without ever stopping to ask, everything I'm trying to hold on to, will it really last? And when something hits a diagnosis, a breakup, a loved one's passing, we're left shaken. Because in truth, everything is fragile. But in that fragility, there's a quiet beauty, like a dewdrop resting on a leaf knowing it will vanish in the morning sun, but glowing all the more because of it. Life is like that too. Precisely because nothing lasts, we're given the chance to love, to learn, to let go, and to grow. The Buddha called this truth Anakim permanens sone of the 3 marks of existence. Everything that arises will also pass away. Nothing exists outside of that law. But understanding impermanence isn't meant to make us afraid. It's here to help us walk more gently. Knowing we can't hold on forever, we learn to love without clinging. Knowing our loved ones won't be here forever, we love them more fully while they are. Anyone who has lost someone dear may understand this well. When we still had time together, maybe the apology wasn't said. The hug was delayed. The meeting was canceled because we were busy. And when impermanence came knocking, we realized the most precious thing isn't what lasts but what is truly present while it's here. We don't need to run from impermanence. We don't need to grasp for what's fading. We only need to live honestly with the present. Be real with ourselves. Cherish each breath as if it were our last. When we do that, life stops being something we chase and becomes a sacred teaching in itself, a teaching of love, a teaching of letting go, a teaching of gratitude. 2. Peace comes when we stop resisting reality. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, this shouldn't be happening? Things were supposed to turn out differently. That person should have understood me better. Most of us have been there at some point. In those quiet moments of frustration, disappointment, or pain, we start pushing back desperately, trying to feel safe again. We hold on to this belief that if life would just go the way we want it to, everything would finally feel okay. But life doesn't always follow our plans. It moves in its own way, on its own terms. The rain shows up on the very day you've planned an outdoor celebration. A close friend suddenly pulls away without saying why. A project you poured your heart into falls apart at the last minute. And in those moments, the natural reaction is to resist. The mind screams, "Number, this can't be happening." In Buddhism, there's a word for suffering dukkha. But here's what's important. The suffering doesn't always come from the event itself. It comes from the resistance to what's already happening. Like trying to stand still in a fast-flowing river, the harder you fight the current, the more you get pulled under. But if you allow yourself to flow with it, like bamboo bending in the wind, you don't break. You become more resilient. A wise old monk once taught this through a simple story. He held up a glass of water and asked, "If you hold this for a minute, is it heavy?" Everyone shook their heads. "What about for an hour?" Someone replied, "Your arm will start to ache." He continued, "What if you had to hold it all day?" "That's impossible," they said. And the monk smiled. "The glass doesn't get heavier, but the longer you hold on, the more it hurts." That's exactly what happens in the heart. The more we resist what we can't change, the heavier it feels. And often, this shows up in small, everyday ways. Someone says something hurtful, and instead of breathing through it and letting it go, the mind begins a long story. They hate me. They don't respect me. Why am I always treated unfairly? And suddenly, it's not even the comment that hurts anymore, it's the refusal to accept that it was said, that it already happened, that it can't be taken back. Over the years, in meditation groups and one-on-one conversations, people have shared their struggles feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, stuck. And most of the time, they weren't fighting with other people. They were fighting with reality, fighting against aging, fighting against loneliness, fighting against a past that can't be undone, But here's the paradox. The more we fight reality, the more we get swallowed by it. Something shifts when we learn to breathe, to pause, and to say, yes, this happened. I can't change it anymore. That simple moment creates space in the heart-like light seeping through a tiny crack. And in that space, true peace begins to take root. Not because everything is okay, but because we're no longer trying to force it to be. In Buddhist teachings, there's a concept called upekkhafen, translated as equanimity. It's not indifference, and it's definitely not running away. It's the calm presence that sees everything as it is rising and falling, coming and going without being pulled around by likes and dislikes, wins and losses, rights and wrongs. When someone lives from this place, they stop struggling. They live like a river flows. The world outside will continue to change. People will misunderstand. They'll love us. And sometimes they'll leave. But when the mind stops resisting, something beautiful happens. The heart learns how to rest. And here's the thing, when we finally accept that we can't control everything, that's the moment we start gaining control over ourselves. Peace doesn't come when life gets easier. It comes when the heart gets big enough to hold even what's hard to hold. Someone once asked, if we stop resisting, how do we make change? The answer is, true change begins not from resistance, but from clarity. Like when it rains on your wedding day, you can spend hours complaining, or you can just open an umbrella. The difference is not in the rain. It's in how we choose to live through it. 3. Acceptance isn't giving up. There's a common misunderstanding in spiritual life. People often think that acceptance means giving up. That if you stop resisting, stop fighting, it must mean you're weak. That you're just surrendering to whatever life throws at you. But the truth is very different. In the light of Buddhist wisdom, acceptance is not surrender. It's not giving in. It's a deep inner strength, quiet kind of courage. It's when someone has enough presence of mind to look directly at what's happening, even when it's painful, and say, this is what's here. This is reality, and I choose not to run away from it anymore. Picture someone standing in the pouring rain. The wind is howling. The storm is heavy. They could stand there, angry, shouting at the sky, frustrated that their plans were ruined. But the rain keeps falling. The clouds don't care. Nothing changes. Now imagine that same person simply opens their umbrella, pulls their coat a little tighter, and keeps walking. The storm is still there, but they've learned how to move through it more gently. That's what real acceptance looks like. Life brings us all kinds of storms. A bad diagnosis, a loved one changing, an unexpected turn we didn't see coming. And most of us respond in one of two ways. We either fight to fix everything, to drag life back to how it used to be, or we collapse in hopelessness. But somewhere between those two extremes, there's a middle path. And that path is mindful, non-attached acceptance. There was an old monk who once said something that stayed with many people. You can't stop the waves, but you can learn how to surf. It sounds simple, but it holds a powerful truth. In group meditations, especially with older practitioners, many people have shared that the hardest part isn't the pain itself. It's the question they can't stop asking, why did this happen to me? They carry a string of what ifs. What if they hadn't left? What if my career hadn't been interrupted? What if I'd taken better care of my parents? But what ifs are just memories wrapped in regret. They don't change the past. They only pull us further away from the present. In these moments, acceptance means choosing to stop fighting what already happened, not by shutting down, but with a kind of wisdom that lets us keep living with peace. The Buddha once taught, nothing should be other than what it is. That doesn't mean we stop doing what's right. It doesn't mean we give up on making things better. It just means that when we act, we don't tie our whole being to the outcome. We act with clarity, with compassion, but let go of our grip on what comes next. Because sometimes the outcome doesn't look the way we hoped. There was once a mother who lost her son in a tragic accident. For years, she couldn't forgive herself. She believed she should have prevented it. One day, she came to the monastery, sat down, and cried for a long time. Then she asked, "How can I accept this without feeling like I'm betraying my love for him?" The monk sat quietly for a moment, then gently asked, "If your son were still alive, how would you want him to live?" She replied, "I'd want him to be happy, to be free of pain." The monk said, "Then maybe you can live that way yourself as a way of continuing that love." And in that moment, she began to understand acceptance isn't forgetting, it's letting go of the self-punishment so love can keep flowing. Acceptance is not passive. It's an active choice to rise instead of sinking into blame or bitterness. To meet life with the softness of compassion, not the hardness of control. Of course, not everyone can do this right away. Sometimes it takes moving through layers of denial, anger, and grief before the heart feels calm enough to see impulsive reactions don't ease the pain. They only make it last longer. But once someone truly sees this, they start to respond differently. No more, "Why did this happen to me?" Instead, it becomes, "This has happened. Now, how do I walk through it with courage?" That's the heart of mindfulness, not flashy, not dramatic, just deeply present with what's real. And maybe the most beautiful thing is this. When we learn to accept without judgment, we begin to treat ourselves more kindly, not with pity, but with real compassion. Because we remember that we too are human. We get tired, we get hurt, and we absolutely have the right to lay down the weight of expectations to breathe again and to live more fully. 4. A question that illuminates. What are you trying to control? There are moments in life when a single question, if we dare to pause and answer it honestly, can open a doorway deep within. And that question is, what am I trying to control right now in my life? At first, it sounds simple, almost harmless. But if you really sit with it, breathe, and look gently into your own heart, you may start to notice there are so many things we try to control. Maybe it's a loved one who doesn't act the way we hoped, a child not following the path we carefully planned, a partner who doesn't respond the way we expect. Sometimes, it's the past, something we can never change, but still cling to. Other times, it's the future, something not yet here, but already causing so much worry. And from that place, suffering doesn't come from the situation itself, it comes from the refusal to let it be what it is. In many meditation sessions, I've heard people share that their exhaustion doesn't come from the outside world being too heavy. It comes from the inner worth fight to make life match their ideas. They're afraid to let go, believing that if they stop controlling, everything will fall apart. But the more they grip, the more peace slips away. It's like trying to hold onto a kite in strong wind. At first, it's out of love, you don't want it to fly away. But the tighter you pull, the stronger the wind feels, and your hands begin to hurt. Eventually, maybe you need to pause and ask, what am I really trying to hold on to? And what might happen if I loosened my grip just a little? The Buddha taught that awareness begins not from rushing to act, but from clearly seeing. When the mind pauses, even just for a moment, and asks gently, what am I resisting right now? That's when the light of wisdom begins to shine through. And in that moment, we stop running, stop blaming, and begin to return to ourselves, to what is. There was a middle-aged woman who once came to a retreat. She cried as she shared how heartbroken she was that her adult son had moved away to live his own life. Not because she was angry, but because she felt like she had lost her role as a mother. "He doesn't need me anymore," she said, and you could feel the ache in every word. But over time, with quiet reflection and meditation, she one day sat down and asked herself, "What am I holding on to? Is it the image of being a mother who is always needed? And is that image still true today?" That one question asked with honesty helped her loosen the knot in her heart. Her love for her son hadn't changed. Her role as a mother hadn't disappeared. But what she released was the illusion that it all had to look the way it did before. In Buddhism, there's a teaching about standing in the middle of a river and trying to stop the water with your bare hands. The water doesn't stop, but you get tired. Freedom doesn't come from making the river stand still. It comes from not fighting the current anymore and learning to move with it, with mindfulness. In the same way, human suffering doesn't always come from big things. It often comes from being trapped in a mental story. Life should be this way. That person should behave that way. My life should have turned out differently. That's why the first step back to peace is simply seeing what you're resisting. Maybe it's a change you didn't want, a pain you haven't healed yet, a sense of failure, or just the quiet truth that you're not in control the way you once were. And in seeing that there's no need to fix anything right away, just take a deep breath, look at things as they are, and whisper gently to yourself, "I don't need to control everything to be at peace." Awakening doesn't mean becoming superhuman. It means becoming fully human, honest, soft, and present. And the one who has the courage to turn inward, to calmly ask, "What am I resisting?" is already taking a profound step on the path of liberation. 5. The river doesn't force itself, yet it still reaches the ocean. Have you ever stood by a river and just watched it flow? No talking, no analyzing, just watching and quietly listening. The water moves, gently, steadily, no forcing, no rushing. It doesn't complain when it hits rocks. It doesn't quit when something blocks its path. It's simply flow-twisting through narrow spaces, sliding around dirt banks, sometimes splitting off, sometimes held back, but eventually, in its own way, it always finds its way to the ocean. A river is a living metaphor of wisdom. In Buddhism, the natural flow of a river is often seen as the path of a wise person. Someone who doesn't try to control everything. Someone who doesn't force life to follow their plans. Someone who doesn't turn back when faced with obstacles. They move gracefully, mindfully, and with quiet persistence. A person with wisdom doesn't live by forcing, but by flowing with causes and conditions, just as a river follows the land. Sometimes it's smooth. Sometimes it's rocky. But it never forgets where it's going. I remember a retreat once, designed for those going through deep life transition, illness, loss, unexpected change. A middle-aged man broke down in tears during sharing. He said, "For 15 years, I've lived like a boat fighting upstream. Every day was a struggle trying to control something, people, the future, even myself. Now, I'm just tired. I don't know how much longer I can keep going." A Zen teacher sat across from him. Gently, he asked the man to sit upright, take a deep breath, and said, "When a river meets a large rock, what does it do?" The man paused, then quietly answered, "It flows around it." The teacher smiled. Exactly. It doesn't get angry. It doesn't slam itself into the rock. It just adjusts softly and keeps going. That simple story stayed with everyone that day. Because at some point in life, we all hit rock's failure, heartbreak, betrayal, illness. And in those moments, the question arises, can we remain soft without breaking? Can we stay flexible without losing direction? Can we keep moving forward without losing compassion? The Buddha once taught, "A wise person doesn't swim against karma but flows with it while practicing awareness." That doesn't mean we surrender blindly to life's hardships. It means we respond with kindness, with clarity, not with resistance or numbness. We still act. We still love. We still try. But we don't demand that results look a certain way. We don't tie our peace to someone else's behavior. We don't force the world to spin according to our expectations. It's not easy, but it's not impossible either. There was a mother in one of our Dharma classes. Her son struggled with alcohol addiction. She had tried everything: pleading, anger, threats, control, but the more she pushed, the more she felt she was losing him. Then one day, she stopped. Not because she stopped loving him, but because she realized true love doesn't mean fixing someone. It means being with them, with compassion, even when they're not ready to change. She started meditating. She began letting go of expectations. She started listening rather than trying to fix. And slowly, quietly, their relationship began to shift. Not overnight, not magically, but genuinely. Just like the river change didn't come from breaking through obstacles, but from never giving up the flow with patience. And that's true strength. Because we often think being strong means doing something huge. But sometimes, strength is simply moving through a chaotic day without breaking apart. Not reacting. Not collapsing. Not losing faith in goodness. The river can change shape, change course, slow down, or speed up. But it never forgets where it's going. And the wise person is just the same, flexible in how they move through life, but never losing sight of the direction of compassion and wisdom. 6. We don't truly own anything, not even ourselves. There's a quiet truth in life. And if you've ever experienced loss, stood at the edge of a goodbye, or lived through a deep life upheaval, then you know this truth is no longer just an idea. It becomes real. The truth is, we don't truly own anything, not even ourselves. At first, that thought might feel hard to accept, because from the moment we're born, we're taught to hold on to possessions, hold on to people, hold on to status, hold on to appearances, and sometimes even hold on to our pain, like it's a part of who we are. We often say, "This is my house, this is my child, this is my career, this is my body, this is me." But if you pause for a moment and really look deeply, you'll see everything we claim to own is really just passing through our lives, like guests visiting for a little while. People don't suffer because they have too little. They suffer because the more they think they have, the more afraid they become of losing it. Clinging to mine is the root of much of our pain. I remember an elderly man in a meditation retreat in California. He said something that made the entire room fall silent. "I lost my wife after 40 years together, but the pain wasn't just because she left. It was because I believed she would always be with me." That one sentence was so raw, so true. Loss is inevitable. But what breaks the heart isn't just the loss, it's the illusion of ownership. In the Anattalakkhana Sutta, the Buddha teaches, "This is not mine, this is not me, this is not myself." Just 3 short lines. But if you really reflect on them, they can change how you live, how you let go. Look at this body of ours. It changes every single day. Our hair doesn't keep its original color. Our skin doesn't stay smooth forever. The body has its strong days and its weak days. And one day, it will stop working altogether. And yet we cling to it. We decorate it. We stress over it. We compare it. We fear the signs of aging. Now, there's nothing wrong with caring for your body. But when we identify ourselves with it, every wrinkle starts to feel like a wound. The same happens with status, reputation, success. One day, you're admired. praised, loved. Then life changes, and when the applause fades, some feel like they disappear. But what's disappearing is just a temporary image, not your true nature. Even our emotions, the ones we think are ours there, always shifting. You can wake up energized and fall into sadness by afternoon. A single comment can throw you off balance. Emotions come like wind, go like clouds. But we say, I'm an anxious person. I'm weak. I'm always angry. We label ourselves, box ourselves in as if these feelings were permanent. But they're not. When someone truly sees the nature of non-self, something softens. They stop needing to hold on so tightly. They stop needing to control everything themselves, others, life itself. A young woman once came to the monastery heartbroken after a 6-year relationship ended. She felt like her entire world had fallen apart. But after some time practicing, she wrote a simple line in the retreat guest book. Turns out, he was never mine, and I was never his. We were just two people walking alongside each other long enough to love, short enough to learn. That one sentence moved so many people to tears. Because we've all clung to something, and we all eventually have to learn to let go. Nothing truly belongs to us. And when we see that naturally, not forceful, your hearts begin to free themselves. We're no longer crushed by the need to possess. We're no longer torn apart when things, people, or even our own identity changes. Instead, there's a quiet smile from within, like someone who's learned to greet and release everything that comes into their life, like a kind visitor. Welcomed, appreciated, but never chained. And from that place, the heart begins to bloom. 7. The lesson of the stone. Pain gets heavier the longer we hold on. There's a simple lesson in life, so simple that we often overlook it. But it's powerful enough to change how we see suffering and ourselves. Imagine holding a small stone in the palm of your hand. At first, it's not heavy. You can hold it for a few minutes, no problem. But what if you kept holding it for an hour, a day, a month? Eventually, your arm gets tired, your hand goes numb, your whole body starts to ache. And yet, the stone itself hasn't changed, it's still the same weight. The problem isn't the stone, it's the refusal to let it go. That's what suffering is like. Something painful happens, a harsh word, a betrayal, a dream that never came true, a loss that still stings. And we hold on to it. We think, if I just hold on a little tighter, maybe I'll understand why it happened. Maybe I can make it go away. But the truth is, the longer we hold it, the heavier it feels. The more we try to figure it out, the more tangled our hearts become. The more we resist it, the deeper the wound grows. At a retreat in Oregon, a woman shared her story. Her husband, whom she loved, deeply left their family after 15 years of marriage. He walked away, started a new life with someone else, and never looked back. 8 years had passed. He didn't return. But neither had she moved on from the pain. Every morning, she still made coffee for a man who wasn't there. Every night, she still looked at his empty chair at the dinner table. She said, "I can't let go. I don't know how to stop remembering." A wise old monk sat silently for a while. Then he reached down, picked up a small stone from the garden, and placed it in her hand. "Can you hold this stone tightly and walk around the meditation hall for 30 minutes? She nodded. "Yes, I can." And she began walking. The first 5 minutes easy. By the 15th minute her hand trembled. Her shoulder ached. "Can I switch hands?" she asked. "No," the monk replied. "Just hold on with that hand." When 30 minutes were up, he said gently, "Now, let it go." In a second, the stone dropped to the ground, and she broke into tears. Not because her hand hurt, But because she finally saw the truth, she had been the one carrying the pain all those years. No one forced her to. No one chained it to her. She just never let it go. And the moment she did nothing, outside had changed. But inside, everything had shifted. The Buddha taught that suffering is part of life, yes, but we get to choose how we carry it. If we hold on to pain with bitterness, it burns us from within. But if we meet it with awareness and understanding, it becomes the ground for growth, for healing, for awakening. The past won't change. The story won't rewrite itself. But the way we see it and the part of us that's holding it can change. One student once asked during a meditation class, "If letting go brings such peace, why can't I do it?" The teacher replied, "Because you still believe that holding on will protect you from forgetting, from being hurt again, from losing control, but it's the holding on that's hurting you most." Sometimes we don't let go because we think it means forgiving the unforgivable, or pretending something didn't happen. But letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean excusing. And it definitely doesn't mean denying. Letting go simply means not carrying it anymore. It's an act of courage to walk forward from the past without erasing it, to keep living with scars that don't define you, to smile and say, "That happened, but now I choose peace." When the stone finally drops, maybe no one hears it, but inside, something opens, something light, spacious, free. 8. True happiness lies in full presence. There's a kind of peace that isn't loud. It doesn't come from achieving something big or dramatic. It comes from this very simple thing, being fully present with your life, right here, right now. Nothing more, nothing less. The truth is, most of the time, we're not really living in the present moment. Our bodies might be here, but our minds are somewhere else replaying the past or worrying about the future. You could be sitting at a warm family dinner, but your thoughts are already stressing about tomorrow's meeting. You might be standing in a peaceful landscape, yet your heart is tangled up in what if or if only. And just like that, the most precious thing, the present moment, gets forgotten. One morning at a monastery in Colorado, people were meditating beneath tall pine trees. Among them was a man attending his very first retreat. He had recently lost his job, his family was in crisis, and his heart had been restless for months. When someone asked him, "When was the last time you truly felt alive in the moment?" He was silent for a long time. Then he softly said, "Maybe 10 years ago. I was driving through a forest in autumn. I pulled over, rolled down the window, and just listened to the leaves falling. 10 years of living, and only one moment of truly being here." There's something inside all of us that says, "You've got to move faster, do more, get more. Only then you'll be happy." But the more we chase, the more exhausted we feel. The more we try to grasp, the more things slip through our fingers. Because happiness isn't out there. It's right here in your full presence. The Buddha taught, dwelling fully in the present is the only path to real life. When the mind is not chained to the past or pulled by the future, even a single breath becomes sacred. A sip of tea, a cool breeze, the song of a bird in the morning, these become living dharma, needing no words. Practicing mindfulness doesn't mean retreating to a cave or escaping from the world. It means learning how to be here, in the ordinary, working, raising your kids, having a conversation, washing the dishes, walking down the street, with a heart that's awake, not judging, not distracted. When the mind stops comparing the present with the past, when it stops forcing the future onto the now, life becomes simple and incredibly radiant. There was an elderly woman who once said that after her husband passed away, life felt empty. Everything she did was just to get through the day. But one day, during a walking meditation, she stopped, reached out, and touched a yellow leaf that had just fallen. "I saw the fine veins on the leaf," she said, "just like the lines on my hands. And suddenly I realized I'm still alive, and every moment can still be beautiful if I'm willing to see it." We don't need something big to be happy. We just need to be here with a heart that isn't rushing. The world will keep changing. People will come and go. Success will rise and fall. And our health, too, will grow more fragile with time. But if you can breathe with awareness, look into a loved one's eyes with presence, take a step in the fading light of day, and truly feel it, then you've already touched something deeply complete. In a Dharma talk, someone once asked, "How do I know if I'm truly living fully?" The teacher didn't give a lecture. He simply picked up a teacup, poured slowly, raised it to his lips, and smiled. No words were needed. Everyone present understood. Happiness is a cup of tea, fully sipped. Modern life teaches us to keep going, but the Dharma teaches us to stop, not to run away, but to remember this simple truth. Only when the heart is truly present does life truly begin. And as we journey through all these layers, letting go of control, embracing reality, seeing impermanence, and learning to live each moment fully, we come to something both humble and profound. Peace is not somewhere far away. It's right where you are, in the moment you're living. Life won't always be easy. There will be heavy days. Things won't always go as planned. And yes, some moments may feel impossible. But if you're still enough to listen, you'll see everything changes. And if you hold change with wisdom and compassion, it becomes the very doorway to your inner freedom. You don't have to do something grand to be happy. Just be here, gently, honestly, with no pressure. Just breathe deep, walk slowly, and let your heart open wide like the sky. Because happiness doesn't come from a perfect life. It comes from no longer needing life to be perfect. If something in this video touched your heart, please subscribe to Buddhism Seeds so you won't miss more soul-nourishing teachings. Click like, share this with someone who needs it, and leave a comment below, because every word you share is a seed of goodness we're planting together. Thank you for being here with your real, quiet heart. May you always rest in peace, no matter how much the world changes.